Hello everyone, welcome to today's class. In today's class, I'll be taking us through basic file types. So these are like the common, very common ones you'll be coming across while doing your motion graphics and explainer videos. So first off, we have still images. The still images are broken down into two broad categories called vectors and raster images. Another word for raster images are bitmaps. The vector images are those files that remain, or the images that remain crisp and clear even after extreme scale up of these files. And examples of these are EPS files and Illustrator files. These files are created with shapes, they are created with path, that's they are created with the computer, let's say Illustrator or CorelDRAW. I just streamline it to all of this, to just this, to this EPS and Illustrator. A substitute of Illustrator can be CorelDRAW and some other softwares, right? But the thing there is that these files are very original. They are created from the software using shape path. Now, a very good the way EPS works, the very major difference between EPS and Illustrator or CorelDRAW is that EPS, every item you have in the EPS has been converted to path and not shapes, and not just basic shapes. It be converted to parts. And yes, the idea for the EPS is that, let's say I'm working in Illustrator, right? And I want to send the file across to, okay, let's say we built our Covenant Nation logo, right, using the Illustrator. But there are other people that will be needing, other creative people that will be sending this thing across to, that would want to actually bring put that's place the use the logo in their pipeline while they are working, right? So what if those people are now using Courage or maybe one particular software? So the way to still retain the file, that's the quality fidelity, there's still quality fidelity, that the file is still crisp and clear, and yes, and make the file is still crisp and clear, and no matter how large you scale it and everything, we wouldn't lose the quality. And you can import it in various other software. The codec to use for that is the EPS. That's why the EPS becomes important, because with this EPS, right, even in Illustrator, InDesign, you can always in CorelDRAW, in InDesign and other softwares, you can import them into the other softwares. Then the bitmap, the bitmap, the very common um, file type is the JPEG and the PNG. The very major difference between PNG and JPEG. One, JPEG is the most common way to store your image, because you can send it across, and this thing also applies to MP4 too. It's like also the same thing with MP4. We'll look into that later. Is that with this file type, JPEG and MP4, you can send your files across all devices, mobile devices, iOS or Mac, and all of that, all across, and they remain. um yeah, they wouldn't have any issue about oh, this is not reading. Okay, and that also happens to PNG. But the good thing with PNG is that it allows you to save something in transparency. Like this woman now that you are seeing, right? The woman we are seeing here, she you can see that for the other one. Okay, after cropping her, that's after using Photoshop to crop her from the background where she sits. Now, if I were to still save it as JPEG, the image wouldn't have come out, transparent as you can see here. Rather, it would have been like a black or white background immediately, even after saving it. So PNG is a good tool, is a good codec, rather, is a good codec, is a good format to save any file you want transparency to, for it to transfer the transparency, um, for it to transfer its transparency. A very good um, codec to use, the format to use is PNG. Okay, you can see also here for these two different images, the Covenant Capital image here is JPEG. That is there's just like a white field, there's a white background on it. So by default, once you save, even though this originally in where whatever software it was created for this Covenant Capital now, whatever software it was created, even though there wasn't any background on it. Once you save it with as JPEG, right, it automatically comes with a black and white background, something like this, or very close to this white background. But you can see this the Covenant Nation, it was exported or saved as PNG, making it transparent, making nothing being on the background. So for the audio, we have commonly the major one you'll be using is the MP3 and WAV. We all know MP3. MP3 is a basic, is a common, but for WAV is used when you want to preserve quality, the quality of your audio. You want it preserved. You don't want, because once you start converting whatever recording you are doing, like the recording I'm doing now, the voice I'm doing now, if I once I start converting it to MP3, then this thing will start, the quality will start reducing. But if you want to maintain quality, if you want to maintain the quality all through, a good way to save it is WAV. So then yes, that's about the audio. Then for the video, we have MP4 and MOV. The same thing, MP4 allows you to, is a most common. So every of those YouTube video you find, many of those YouTube video you find, they are MP4. They are in MP4. Many of this thing we find that we share online, the codec is MP4. Then the MOV, one thing with MOV is that if you want to also preserve the quality of your, though at the end of the day you end up having a larger file size, and that also applies to WAV also. Like when you save your audio file as WAV and not MP3, the quality tends to, the size tends to be very much higher compared to when you just save it as MP3. For instance, I want to show you people how this to show you how the difference in size come to play. For instance, I have the exact files, the exact video, but exported as MOV and MP4. For the MOV, you can see I just hovered my mouse on this now. You can see it says 48.2 MB, right? But for this MP4, we have 1.665 MB. So you can see there is a huge world of difference between when you export your file as MOV and MP4. A good difference again between MOV and um, and MP4 is that with MOV we are we have the capacity to save the transparency of the file. For instance, this lower third that you find here, this is called the lower third. That's the pastor lower third, right? You find that that is the only thing we find here. Don't mind this MOV, this and that. That's just to tell you, okay, this is an MOV file. But once we come to this, because okay, mind you, this pastor file that you're seeing now was actually exported as 1920 by 1080. That means, right, it take cognizant of the whole, what's it called, the whole because this video now is being rendered in 1920 by 1080. It, it should have taken, it should have covered everything. That's the whole screen. Yes, once I go to the MP4 now, you understand what I mean by it should have covered. So you can see for the MP4, You can see everything. The background, the former background is not showing. The background that that this thing was sitting on is no longer showing. You can see it's no longer showing. This background that I have here is no longer showing. Yeah, the background is no longer. You see the background that is showing here because this is MOV, right? And only what we just needed is a Koju Oyemade, senior pastor, the covenant nation, right? As different from here. Yes, that is showing, but you now have like black background. So a good way to store transparency in video format is using exporting it as MOV. So that brings us to the end to this class. The next class now will be making use of these different file types and work to like carry our task to tell our story in After Effects.